Well, that changed in a hurry.
Well, I'm indoors today, at least for an hour or two. I'm indoors. Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge, folks. I'm John Najarian. That way. That's Pete Najarian. And Jared is handling all of the activities with the Bears because the Bears dominate all four major markets today. And so whether it's a snowboarding bear like that or a bear that's just kicking some bull's butt, we're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah.
And wow, after months and months of nothing but up, Pete, we're finally seeing the Bears get a little bit of their due.
Well, they want a little taste. They want a little taste of the how things are going, and they're getting it.
Well, and we're basically flirting right at the 4% line, Pete, for the 10-year. Mm-hmm. So we'll get to that in the fantastic futures, but let's just talk for a moment about macro. And for the macro, we're going to discuss this charity event that Pete and I are speaking at out in Las Vegas. And it's going to be the 21st of September to the 24th. There's going to be Brian Shannon and let's see, the lead dude, Andrew Left from Citron Research, and a whole bunch of great people that are going to be presenting out there at this. And it all goes to charity, Pete. Mm-hmm. None of us are making a dime off of it, but it's going to be a fun time. They've got a bunch of events planned. We've got a big viewing party for Thursday night football to kick things off, and sounds like it'll be a pretty fun thing. So if you'd like to sign up, Pete and I will definitely be there. Pete will be at the Chainsmokers concert for sure on Friday night and Saturday. Go to Market Mind Summit. That's Market Minds. There's actually an S there, marketmindssummit.com. And if you enter Market Rebellion, you get $300 off. And remember, it goes to charity. So if you feel like buying some silent auction items when you're out there for charity and so forth, this is going to be a great event. It's called Trade It Forward, I guess, Pete, the Market Minds Summit. Should be a fun time.
It's a great time. These guys are great, and it's a pleasure, and we're honored to be part of it to try to raise as much money as we can. Should be a lot of. If you can't have fun in Vegas and you've got football and all the different sports going on and everything else, you really haven't figured things out. It's one of the great cities of all time, and there's a good reason they call it Sin City.
Yes, there is. Well, Pete, we've got crude oil back over 83, so that's going to be my fantastic futures.
Fantastic futures.
Well, not only that, John, but crude today got over 84.60. It actually got a little bit above that, and then it started to pull back again. But as we've talked about, this thing is absolutely on fire. We're seeing more and more unusual option activity in the energy names. That space is getting hot. I'm going to point out this. How about this is the highest level for nat gas since March. It's actually gotten today above $3. So that one I think is pretty impressive. Hasn't held up there. It's pulled right back a little bit, but it got over 3 briefly. And I wouldn't be surprised if it can hold up there. Maybe this turns into like the 10-year where it gets a little sticky and then maybe starts to shoot up even a little bit higher.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Pete, we're going to break down some stocks that are making big moves today. I mean, when I started in the business in 1981, Pete, I don't remember seeing stocks making 20 and 30% moves on a daily basis, but they do now. Mm-hmm. And this Marathi, it was up 32% today. It's holding about a 30% gain. A bunch of news on their cancer treatments. That's a major driver. And a $300 million deal. Its CEO is going to actually step away, Pete. So, wow, pretty big deal going on with Marathi. And this one is trading about 4.3 million shares. 1 million is average.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing, John. And when your revenue jumps up 154% year over year, that does say a lot. This is a company, cancer treatment is their primary focus. They've got phase 3, which people are very excited about for one of their biggest drugs. And they have a heck of a pipeline here too. They've got 7 different drugs in the pipeline right now, treatments in the pipeline right now that are in phase 2 or phase 3. So they are moving along. People, I think, are very excited about the phase 3 element of this small cell lung cancer. That's something that, everybody seems to be trying to work on something there. They seem to be thinking right now that this thing is looking pretty good, at least up to now. But you got to get to the finish line. So always remember that. People get excited, but they've got to remember that these things get to phase 3. Now you got to get past that level and then get this thing out on the market. And that's what people are looking forward to now.
Well, and we're all hoping, crossing our fingers for anybody suffering from one of the cancers that they're out there treating, Pete. So knock on wood, let's see how well they do with the next phase. All right, let's talk now about Array, ARRY. This one up 27%. Basically, Pete, stock brought bottom line home of 47 cents per share, more than double. Not quite a triple, but more than double what they were projected to do. Revenue was over $500 million versus 446 million was the average estimate. And then they raised guidance. So it's not a big surprise that these guys are screaming higher. But you know what? I know you know this, Pete, but we had unusual option activity in this one. So the stock gets up there, and this Array, it was trading below 20, and it drives to almost $23 a share. Let me see what the high was on the day, Pete. Yep, 23.51 was the high on the day. So this is a phenomenal move, and anybody that bought the options that we were talking about, take a look at that screen, folks. You can see where we posted it up, when we set it, and then how far the stock got. So as far as the option side of it. So that's, I think, a phenomenal move, and another reason you need to pay attention when Pete and I are talking about these stocks and unusual activity.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there were 2 buyers the other day and follow-up buyers even today, John. So the excitement is there. Apparently, people are definitely looking for new 52-week highs. The 52-week high was just above where it hit today. It's at 25. So that's something. The free cash flow, I think, is impressive. You talked about it, but there is nothing you could say a negative at all when you look at that earnings and all the different numbers that came out. I mean, when you put up 45 cents, you're looking for 19. That's crushing it. And last quarter, they did the same thing, John. They got 3 cents. They were looking for 3 cents. They had 25. So they are on an absolute roll. They're moving along. And, oh, by the way, they actually trade with a PE. These guys do pretty well for themselves. They're in the solar space and very, very exciting. But it's one of those where you've got great free cash flow. They got some debt. That's okay. That's part of the business that they're in. But this is one that I think people should definitely take another look at. I don't think this stock is done going higher either.
No. And, I'm delighted for all of you guys that follow our work that we're able to follow right along with this trade, because we're seeing the unusual activity, folks. Our traders are posting it up on the website. And then many of you that subscribe get to ride that wonderful jump to the upside. Remember, you can always go to marketrebellion.com/bang. That's marketrebellion.com/bang. And you get a BOGO, meaning, of course, you buy 1 month to get 2 months free. The second month, rather, free. Now I've got another bang for you, Pete. This one, Penn Gaming. And Penn, they basically got an offer they couldn't refuse, just like in The Godfather, Pete. Basically, ESPN said, hey, we'll be your partner. And Penn said, okay, we're going to ditch the Barstool guys. So they had just purchased the piece of Barstool they didn't own, because they owned a majority, and then they just purchased the last stub, if you will. And the total buyout was like $600 million. And then all of a sudden, they get this offer from ESPN, and they say, you know what? you Barstool guys, you go over here, have a good time. We're going to basically keep 50% of any of the upside if you sell this thing, but we're going to partner up with ESPN. How could you turn it down? We had unusual activity in this one, Pete. And so if you want a BOGO, again, folks, if you want to buy 1 month, get the second month free, well, go to this one because we had unusual activity in this one and it responded magnificently, right?
And there's a combination of things going on there, John, because they also had earnings and they crushed it. They beat on the earnings side, they beat on the revenue side. They really put up some pretty good numbers there. And this deal with Disney. Now, what's really curious to me is Disney's got earnings tonight. So we're going to be able to hear a whole lot more about what's going on there, John. It's a stock that's been getting hammered. We all know that much, but it'll be interesting to see what the comments are coming from Iger because Disney was one property that always had thought not to get into, quote unquote, the sin world, and gambling maybe comes underneath that category, but now they're in there together. So that could be pretty interesting. And what does that really mean for the screens and people looking at things? And they only really need one, John, because now they've got the app. They can do all of this. They can watch while they're doing their betting and everything. So it is a really interesting thing to see, and how this actually all came together would probably in a bit of a hurry, I would say. So interesting to watch this whole thing play out. Great move today to the upside by Penn, although it's come off of those highs pretty extreme as well.
Yeah, but you had your chance, folks, and you had to be disciplined. Pete and I, when we see a stock that makes a move like this, we take off probably 75% of our trade, and then maybe leave a stub to see if it keeps going, and if it doesn't, cut that and move on to the next trade. You got to be disciplined about taking profits and cutting losses. And again, marketrebellion.com/bang will get you there. All right, let's talk about Upstart, Pete. It's an AI cloud-based lending platform. So in other words, instead of having a bunch of loan origination officers and things like that, they basically said, hey, we think artificial intelligence can do it for us. Well, they're a California-based company. They use that artificial intelligence and machine learning to basically determine who they're going to lend to and so forth and so on. Well, it ain't working out so swell, at least not right now, because stock's down over 30%. We've showed you a couple of big winners today. This one's down 30%. I wish we could say we had puts in it. We didn't. We did not have calls either. But this is just one of those oddities where you miss badly and people just take you out to the woodshed.
And the miss really came with the revenue, John. The actual earnings itself, not so bad. But when you look at the revenue, 140 million, and they're expecting 155 million, that's big. And that is a big miss. And it's something I think a lot of folks were staring at that. And when you look at the free cash flow, that's a negative 250. And you also look at what the shorts are. The shorts in this one were not getting squeezed. The shorts were right because they've got massive short interest in this particular stock. And let's not forget, this is a stock, you go back 2 years ago, this is a stock that was over $300. You just go back just to July, John, it was $65. Now here we are trading at $34. So you want a wild ride. This is one of those names that's going to give you that ride, but it doesn't always mean it's going to be pleasant because all those longs that are in there as well are definitely trying to figure out what they need to do at this point in time. Interesting stock, interesting position where they are. Everybody loves AI until they don't. And in this case, they've been sliding and they haven't been able to turn it around, John, for a while.
Yeah, it's not near the lows right now, folks. The lows were under $12, but it's still a pretty ugly slide today, a 31% slide.
Yeah.
All right, let's hand it over to Pete for a little sports. What do you want to talk about today, Pete?
Well, you and I were talking about this yesterday. I thought it was worthwhile going back to it, John, because they had, yesterday, the first Hard Knocks of the year with the New York Jets, Jets, Jets. This thing was great. And I know you're over in Europe. You probably didn't get a chance to see it. You're in Spain and doing your thing or whatever. But I will tell you this. Aaron Rodgers was pretty amazing. It was great watching him and what he's doing. They've got a cornerback that they picked up last year, Sauce Gardner, who's a big, tall, lean guy who's probably one of the better, if not one of the very best corner foot in football right now. And they were showing him in practice going up against Garrett Wilson, man-to-man, head-to-head going on. And Garrett, obviously a high-round draft pick from Alabama. I got to tell you something. These guys look great everywhere, John. That defensive line, they gave a lot of money to a lot of different players on that defensive line. One of the guys really just about broke the bank with the Jets. But absolutely amazing to watch them. And what I loved most is it reminds me of Pete Carroll, because he's got ones going against ones. He doesn't have, his top receiver going against some rookie who's trying to make the team. They're going one-on-one against the very best in camp. And to watch that, to watch Aaron calling plays in the Hall of Fame game as well, that was pretty cool. Literally, John, he's in the quarterback, Zach Wilson's ear, who was this highly decorated quarterback out of BYU. They drafted him really high in the draft. He kind of struggled, and now you've got Aaron Rodgers tutoring him. He wasn't playing in the game. He's in street clothes, and he's literally calling the plays. So he said to him, he goes, hey, look, here's what you got to do. You got to do this and play this and then throw it to this guy. He did it. The guy executed it perfectly. They throw a 60-yard pass. Absolutely beautiful. And you can see how excited Aaron is with this new place, Gang Green, with the Jets, getting away from the Green Bay Packers. He's all in, John. And I'll tell you what, the coach is doing a miraculous job. He does a great during the game and watching it. It's a preseason game, I know, but watching how he interacts with the linebackers, how he interacts with all the different players and what he's doing and how they're gaming it and everything else. You can't miss this series. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I've always been a big believer in, hey, ones go up against ones. That's the way you get better. What do you think? Because not everybody believes that. And I'm not saying I'm right, but I like it because the competition level is there.
Absolutely it is. And how many Hall of Famers, Pete, future Hall of Famers, do you have calling plays like that? Not a heck of a lot. So it sort of dispels some of the other things about, oh, he's going to be aloof and he's not going to, be open to anything. It's all going to be just about him and his celebrity on the East Coast, the biggest market in America. And it didn't seem like that's the way it was portrayed at all. It seemed like he was willing to help, like you say, a younger quarterback, which he was under Brett Favre, become a star. And maybe that kid, Zach Wilson, will. We'll have to see. But he certainly, when he hit Malik with that long pass, 57, 60 yards, whatever, he certainly looked the part of a quarterback that could be a quarterback of the future. Not this year, but of the future.
Yeah. All right, let's jump on to the Pac-4, or what once was the Pac-8, then 10, then 12, but Pac-4 now. Somewhere along the line, something's going to happen. It has to happen pretty soon, John. And here's why. And for the people who haven't kept up with this whole thing, you've got a big chunk of the Pac-12 now going to the Big 10 or the Big 12. So you've lost to both of those two. Now, the interesting thing is everybody's talking about the ACC. The ACC, you do have a time limit, August 15th. At August 15th, the clock stops and there is no more changes. And as of right now, when you look at Cal and Stanford, you know what the football schedule looks like in 2024? It ain't there because they hadn't gotten that far. So that makes for something very interesting as well. But anybody wanting to leave the ACC, because they've talked about that, whether that's Clemson or Miami or, you pick your team, Florida State, whoever, if somebody decides that they want to make a jump, they've got to do it before August 15th. Otherwise, they're at least locked in for this year and next year. And then they got to figure it out after that. But there's a lot of big money deals. But I stumbled onto something that I thought was really interesting, John, and I figured I'd love to hear your take on it as well. So I was just reading about this. So there's a player who committed to USC because he's a West Coast guy, wants to stay on the West Coast, but he wants to play in the Big Ten. USC and UCLA had already determined they were going to go to the Big Ten. So that was a known. What he didn't know was that Oregon and Washington were going to go to the Big Ten. So this kid decommitted from USC and now committed to Oregon. So now Oregon is tied with a couple other schools with the best class coming in 2024 next year. So it just shows you things are changing as we go. So if you committed to Arizona or Arizona State and you don't really want to be a part of the Big 12, you want to be in the Big 10, maybe you were guessing they'd go there. It didn't happen. Maybe you transfer. Maybe you go to Washington or Oregon or something like that. I mean, that's how crazy things have gotten, John. So I don't know. What do you think? And do you got any further thoughts on should Cal and Stanford go to the ACC?
I would think, Pete, that first of all, it's such a long trip. We've talked about it ad nauseum, so I don't need to beat that dead horse. But that's a long trip every week that they're on the road because there's nothing in the ACC close to either of those two schools. As far as if they were to go into the Big 10 or Big 12, they're half as far. I know there's Maryland, and I don't know how long Maryland stays in there, or Rutgers, Pete, because those guys, they were added to the Big 10 just a couple of years ago. I don't really see them as being at the level of a lot of those other teams in the Big 10. And you'd eliminate more of the East Coast if you didn't have them. So you're more of a 3-hour flight rather than the 5-hour flight for the kids that are going to have to do it. I would say Big 12 or Big 10, Pete, either of those. You and I discussed a little bit about, Mountain West sort of thing and all that. I think these guys end up being in either Big 12, SEC, or Big 10. That's my feel anyway.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, Cal Stanford definitely would top off the Big 10, to your point, and getting rid of a couple of teams, maybe that are schools, that might not be the worst idea in the world. I mean, you already got Penn State. That's pretty far, but you go even a little bit further, you go to Rutgers and Maryland, all the rest of that. So it makes the whole thing a little bit less complicated if you do end up picking up those two and eliminating the others with some of those trips. Plus, you've already got the other 4 from the Pac. So not every game on the road is going to be going all the way back to the middle of the country. They can still bounce around there as well. So it really will be playing out right before our eyes like it is. And I think we're going to continue to see changes.
I think we will. And I think it gives ESPN a lot to talk about, Pete, and maybe even a few things to bet on per that Penn Gaming thing we talked about earlier. Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us, folks. We will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Remember, if you'd like to attend that conference out in Las Vegas, you just go to Market Minds Summit. That's Market Minds, plural, summit.com. And if you use our code, Market Rebellion, you end up getting a $300 discount for attending. And again, it all goes to charity. Pete doesn't make a dime off of it. I don't make a dime off of it. We're happy to support the charities that they're supporting for this. But basically, instead of pay it forward, they're calling it trade it forward. So we hope you can check it out, marketmindssummit.com. And we'll see you tomorrow at 1.